Thank you, Susan. And on behalf of the Technology Committee, I thank the Annual Program Committee for giving us some time to share some news that we think is pretty exciting. I was told that I had to keep it to 20 minutes, and for those of you who know me, this is going to be quite a challenge. I chaired the Technology Committee for 5.5 years, and if you've been on a committee with NASBP, you know that each committee has some very large goals. And ours was, being technology, we need to figure out ways, utilizing technology that will make the NASBP agency's lives easier, better. How do we do that? How do we make a difference? If you couldn't tell, that was impromptu. My entire adult life, I've told people I can't dance, and now you all know I can't. I can't believe I did that. This is what happens if you put me up on a stage. So, looking back, our business is antiquated. Paper, more paper, lots of time. How we used to transact business, and further embarrassing myself, this screen here represents the old days with the CRT monitors, and Dave Golden, bless him, took 1990s headshots of Greg and myself and superimposed them on Bill Gates and Stephen Jobs. But we all remember the days of it taking days for bonds to be approved. Put together a submission, you mail it, then fax came along, that made things easier. Now we've got email. But we're still the process of submitting an account to a surety and writing a bond has relatively remained unchanged. So again, the Technology Committee, we got to find a better way to do things. And if you're not familiar with what we do, we're constantly monitoring and analyzing automation and technology issues and trying to figure out ways to make our lives easier. We have some key relationships with groups like SFAA, and now we have a relationship with Accord, which is the surety or the insurance form standards body. And just recently, we've gained a relationship with XBRL. They're the global financial standards body. So the dream is this: seamless integration. If anybody's ever talked to me and asked me, what are you doing in technology? I'm constantly going on and on about how I hate the way things are, and it's got to be simple. And the sureties have put a tremendous amount of money into their own systems, but if you have 15 sureties, you have to learn 15 systems, and I wish there was a way to make it easier. So as a committee, as an industry, how do we make a difference in changing this? Well, I thought it was simple because I'm naive. I'm just, hey, sureties, go do this. And it's not, because everybody has their own way of doing things, and again, they put a lot of money in. So we thought, okay, how do we start? And somebody much smarter than me, and I wish you could remember who it was, said we need to start with our forms, because all the data that's in the forms is what the surety company uses in preparing a bond approval. So my committee created what we're calling the Surety Forms Working Group. And our mission is simply this: to create, maintain, and promote automated forms. Automated forms, in other words, electronic fields, using standardization and integration throughout the bond process. There we go. So we got to pick a leader. Not a dictatorship. This is a huge project. We need a number of people. We found the perfect person in Jenny Wagner, you saw her earlier. She is such a fireball. She makes me look a guy who lives on Valium on a daily basis. She has so much energy. She's perfect. As chair of the Technology Committee, I'm part of the leadership. Robert Kuhn, who's the incoming technology chair, is also in the leadership group. Greg Davenport and Jason Dahl from Liberty have been seriously invested in this process for years. And then Dave Golden, NASBP's IT director, rounds out the leadership group. So, who does our group consist of? And it's open to any individual, whether you're with a surety, an agency, a vendor, a contractor, anybody who has a stake in the surety bond process. We want them to help contribute to our initiative. It's a collaborative effort, and that number up there is correct. We have 115 different people that have contributed to what we've done so far. but we've only just begun. The next step involves different expertise. It needs more energy, so we're pitching this to everyone. If you're interested, we need you to join us. Let's step back a minute. So, okay, I mentioned forms. How do we do this? Well, the technology committee about 8-9 years ago created the producer's toolkit, which consisted of just about every form that we use to interact with the surety, submitting a new bond, submitting a new account, having the information come back to us. All the forms are listed up there. To give you a better idea about the nitty-gritty of where we were and where we're going, I'm going to hand it over to Greg.
Thank you, Nick, and good morning. I, too, want to thank you for time on the program this morning, because looking back, I think in part because of the successful expo that NASBP has hosted over the years, it's been quite a while since we've had a technology presentation at the annual meeting. In fact, the last time was 1999. Some of you may have been there. Remember, in Vancouver, British Columbia, Debbie Niemeyer, who was Nick's predecessor, the chair of the Technology and Automation Committee for NASBP, and I gave a joint presentation because there was a lot to report on back then. We had a rush of activity. The SFAA, NASBP, facilitated by a court, to develop data standards in record time, faster than anybody in the PNC industry had ever done before. Why did we develop these data standards? Because back in the late 90s, we were starting to see surety-specific systems for agents, and companies were updating their systems. And rather than have one system that everybody in the industry would use, we needed to figure out how can those systems communicate with each other? How can we reach that dream of that seamless integration that Nick talked about? So we thought, hey, let's use this metaphor of the space shuttle. A few of them may have been there and remember. We put the pieces together. We were ready to take off and launch into the 21st century with this new technology and these data standards. And so Debbie had the bright idea that, well, gosh, if we're going to talk about the space shuttle, wouldn't it be cool if we wore space suits to give our presentations? So I know that Denny Lutz remembers this because every year he reminds me. Fortunately, the space suits were retired, donated to the Smithsonian's, but the dream lives on. That seamless integration dream lives on. So I thought it'd be interesting to step back and take a look at what has happened over these last 16 years. What's different from today, and maybe what hasn't changed so much. So first of all, the surety landscape itself has changed. These logos represent the carriers who were involved in the data standards effort back in 1999. Take a look. Very few of them exist today through mergers and acquisitions. You know, it's definitely changed. Now, the good news is that today we have as many or more surety carriers that support data standards. And what we're trying to do at NASBP with the Forms Group, as Nick mentioned, a lot of involvement. The problem is not many of these carriers have implemented, or the ones that exist today, have implemented the data standards. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. What else has changed? Well, again, 16 years ago, even though the space shuttle had been around for a while, it was still, you know, the future, 21st century and all that. Well, the shuttles have been retired. So if you think back, I mean, that was outdated technology for NASA. Take a look at where we are as an industry. What progress have we made, and where maybe we've fallen short? So what else has changed? Well, as Nick mentioned, that's a great picture. Thanks, Dave. That actually back in the 90s, those of you that were fortunate to work with sureties that were on the cutting edge of automation, remember how we delivered that to you? We gave you the whole system. You got the box, you got the beautiful CRT that had green text against black background, and a state-of-the-art dot matrix printer that actually printed off those bonds that you could deliver to the company. And if you were lucky enough to work with many sureties, and many of you do, that had technology, what that looked like? Well, you had a box for every single surety in the back of your office. You had to go desk to desk to desk, right? And then you remember to get your job executed, right? So the good news is, 16 years later, you can work from one computer. Not your desktop, but your laptop, maybe your tablet while you're out on the beach, or even your phone. to get the job done with a surety. The problem is, if your desk or your CSR's back home, they may need 6 monitors to do it. Why? Because every surety has their own proprietary website that you have to go to. Now, there's a place for those, particularly for small transactional business, where you can put very little information in, get the underwriting decision in real time, direct bill, and the bond package picks out. You can even email it in some cases to the client. So there's a place for those systems, but our committee, both NASBP and SFAA, have heard loud and clear that NASBP surety professional agents for account business, you want one system that you can work with that'll interact with all your carriers, right? That's that dream of seamless integration. So the good news is, 16 years later, that dream is reality. If you haven't already, I encourage you, go to the expo after this, and you'll see it work. There are vendors that have implemented these data standards for real-time report of execution upload to carriers, where at a click of a button, your CSR in your office can transmit that data to those of us that can accept it. We'll confirm it, and in a matter of seconds, validate you have the right premium, everything else is right. You print that invoice, you put it with the bond package, out it goes, and you're done. That's what seamless integration is about. Unfortunately, I can count on one hand how many trading partners, meaning the system from either vendors or carriers, have actually implemented this standard. Now, there are tens of thousands of transactions that are being processed like this every day. So it's happening. It has made a change in the industry. There are scores of agents and brokers that are using this. But the dream is still not reality for most of the carriers and many of the agents in this room. So we took a look at it with Nick's committee and same at SFA, and we asked, we've been at this for 16 years. What do we need to do differently? How do we need to think about this to drive more implementation? I think the last implementation was probably 8 years ago. So we reached out to Accord, our partner through this all along. I said, what experience do you have with P&C that we might borrow from? He said, we've run into this too with insurance. And what we've developed, Accord, is a new technology they call e-label technology. And what they do is go back, this is back to the basics with forms. We take the form, the court standard form, we put a label on it, we tag it. So now you can extract that data off the form and feed it into an agency management system or into the carrier system. So it's a much simpler, less costly implementation. We said, that's a great idea, let's explore that. So Nick had the idea and Jenny, to hold an industry meeting that Applied Systems in Chicago agreed to host in November. And Doug Johnston from Applied Systems and Cal Berlinger contacted Accord, who were here in the audience today. I'm going to play a short video where they're going to explain what we did at this meeting.
So at a joint working group that we had last year at Applied Systems, where we brought Accord and the National Association of Surety Bond Producers together, actually, and carriers to actually resolve these issues, we established the basis for the forms. Now, the forms are just the very beginning. You actually need the electronic message standards to go with them, and that's the next step of the process, is that once we've finalized what the forms look like and what fields are in the forms, then the technical committees will go away and they'll actually build the electronic messages. And for the agencies, that's really the important part, is having both the form and the message, because just getting data into a form doesn't really help the agency with all of the workflows and processes related downstream from that form. And so we really need the architecture of the technical message to how to integrate the data from those forms into the processes of the insurance agencies to make it actually a profitable action. And so today we have the forms that are just being finalized. Very soon we will have the electronic standards, and then the vendors, the agency and broker software providers, and the carriers can begin implementing these standards in their systems to actually streamline these processes and finally deliver efficiencies into the surety bond process.
So we want to thank NASBP for taking the lead on this and the donation that they've made to the industry, and let everybody know that in 2016 we're going to start getting this into your system so you can have that seamless integration.
Thank you, Doug and Cal, for hosting us. run 2 tracks. We still encourage that real-time implementation, and there are some vendors that are still working on it and other carriers, but for those of you that don't want to make that investment, here's another way. We're going to take these standard forms based on NASBP's contribution of their producer toolkit. We've made 2 forms, Accord standards. One is the report of execution, so again, if you don't do the real-time feed, the idea is we'll put labels on that. You can fill that out at the agency, and that data can feed to your agency management system or to the carrier. What I'm really excited about is we're finally ready to move beyond report of execution. We've been kind of stuck there, trying to drive implementations that other way. Now we can get on to other transactions. We developed the standards for those 16 years ago. Just didn't do anything with them. So now bond request, starting with contract bond request, our second official accord form is a contract bond request that now that we have a standard, we can all work off of that, and that'll be easier and more responsive to trade that information with your surety. And we're working to finalize the commercial bond request. That should be an official accord form by October, which is their next voting cycle. But we're not stopping there. Financial analysis and work in process schedules. As Nick mentioned, we're now working with a second standards body, XBRL, that handles financial standards for the world. And by getting a proof of concept to get that work on hand information off the Excel spreadsheet, similar to the other forms I'm talking about, for both WIP and financial analysis, then you'll be able to integrate that into your systems too, whether it's an agency management system or maybe just a little analytical tool. I've seen this in practice for other industries that XBRL has shown at their conference, or into the carrier system. The good news is that you as an agent don't have to input this. Why? Because this is a standard that actually reaches out to the SEC, to CPAs, to entities like Intuit that have QuickBooks, where we'll get that information right from the source. And now as an agent, you can get that and analyze it if you care to, and certainly the carriers can too. So a lot of exciting stuff has happened thanks to the contribution that NASBP's made with the toolkit forms, and now we have standards that we can all work on, and there's another path towards our work in the 21st century. So this little video I'm going to show you kind of sums it all up and tells you how this can change the way that all of us, whether it be NASBP members or affiliated companies, can work and move forward into the 21st century.
Surety form processing in the 20th century. Surety agents or brokers meet with the principal and identify the need for a bond. The agent or broker then runs back to their office to fill out surety forms and submit them to the carrier. After filling out the required forms, the agent or broker hands it over to someone in the office to enter the information into their agency management system. The agent or broker then pops the forms into the mail to the surety carrier for processing. The surety carrier receives the forms, enters the information into their systems, and sends back a completed bond package to the agent or broker. This process wastes time, requires rekeying data multiple times, and wastes money. What if there was a better way to do business? There is. The NASBP introduces new Accord surety bond forms with e-labels, created by NASBP-affiliated agents and carriers. Now when the agent or broker enters information into the Accord surety form with e-labels, the information is converted to computer code, or XML. The form can be sent to third-party software vendors or the surety carrier via email or direct feed and populate their systems without anyone rekeying any information. Single point of entry with distribution to many platforms without multiple touches. Now that's business in the 21st century.
And my initial reaction was, but I didn't get anything done. You know, I didn't want to leave, but I get it. And then in a matter of a year, within the last year, this all took place other than that 501. I mean, the partnerships with Accord and Applied, and now XBRL, and getting Jenny and her enthusiasm in. I mean, it's radically changed what this committee's been doing, and this is really big stuff. So we're excited. We don't have to wait another 16 years for a technology update. Now the update is happening daily. If you've got the capability, and if you're not sure, check with your carriers. If you use a vendor, check with them. If you have this capability, what's stopping you from using it? I personally cannot wait. And if you don't, take action. How do you take action? Well, ask for it. Check with your carriers, ones you do the most bond business with. If you've got a vendor, check with them. They're all working to make this happen. Join our Surety Forms working group. Dave Golden loves getting emails. Bombard him with offers to join the group. Participate and support the Joint Automation Committee, which is comprised of NASBP's Automation and Technology Committee and the SFAA's E-Business Advisory Committee. Communicate with the courts. Learn about XBRL and how this is going to help. To learn more about all this, since we are short on time, you mentioned earlier, the vendors are out there, Accord is out there, Applied is out there. Talk to them. Find out how this is all going to happen, and thank you very much.